Hi, welcome to the City of Norman's second virtual town hall meeting on the Go Norman 2020. On Tuesday, Norman residents will have the opportunity to vote on 4 propositions on the ballot, and we're here to answer your questions and give a little information about what all projects are on those ballots. So we'll do a presentation, and then if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. We also have some emails ahead of time to our social@normanok.gov account. So we'll be reading questions both from email and from the comments. So Daryl, please kick us off.
Thank you, Annahlyse. We have the lion's share of our management team here with us this morning to be able to answer any questions that may arise. We'll take you through our presentation on what to expect on the Go Norman 2020 ballot, Tuesday, August 25th. The ballot will contain 4 questions. Question 1 is an $85.6 million question to allow us to finish the balance of the Norman Forward projects and finish them to the same high level of excitement and community benefit that we've experienced from the Central Library Project, the East Side Library Project, and the Westwood Water and Tennis Complex. Proposition 2 is a homeless facilities question. It's a $5 million question to allow us to implement the study findings for a homeless and housing study that is currently underway. Proposition 3 is a municipal facilities question. That's a $24.3 million component to allow us to complete the work that began with a 2008 voter approval to renovate the former Central Library and to develop an emergency operations center as well as a fleet and fire maintenance facility. Proposition 4 is a small business relief package with a $5 million question to allow us to help improve the job situation and help support small businesses negatively impacted by COVID-19. So the first question, Norman Forward, there are 7 projects that are in design and or under construction in various stages. The first one is the multi-sport and aquatics facility. The artist rendering of the facility as it is currently envisioned is a 152,000 square foot facility to be located in University North Park. And as you can see from the drawing, the building in the upper right-hand corner is the Embassy Suites Hotel. In total, there's over 600 hotel rooms adjacent to this site, which really provide a huge advantage to what this facility can do for the city of Norman. It will include a 25-yard by 50-meter Olympic pool, as well as a 25-yard 6-lane warm-up pool with seating for approximately 1,200 spectators, 8 full-size basketball courts that can be utilized as 16 volleyball courts or a facility for wrestling and various indoor sports, as well as a 10,000 square foot health clinic to be built and operated by the folks at Norman Regional to support athletes while they are competing or while they are training. The rendering of the entrance of the building, the door on the left gets you to the multi-sport facility. The door on the right side of this particular picture will take you into the aquatics facility. Inside, our community members will enjoy as fine a flooring surface for basketball and volleyball as you'll find anywhere in the country in a facility like this, and 8 courts large enough to accommodate local use as well as tournament play from around the country. Just some renderings of how that space will function and operate. The aquatics facility designed in such a way where the spectators will not have their view of the pool impeded by any supports to hold the roof up. It's all part of the design for a great experience for both the athletes and spectators. And to support our school system, there is a locker room facility built under the seating that you see there in the picture. One of the most exciting aspects of this particular slide is the Young Family Aquatics facility, and that comes along with the support of the Young Family Foundation. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Judd Foster to share some of the benefits we anticipate from the support of the Young Family Foundation.
Sure. Thank you, Daryl. We are excited for the relationship we have with the Young Family. They are interested in giving back to the youth of Norman, and they would like to do that in such a way where the gift that they have pledged to the tune of $4 million, much of that would go to offsetting user fees, fees that kids that may not be able to afford to pay can be participating at this facility, and as well as fees that might be needed to purchase equipment for kids that may not be able to afford it, and also want to include some incentive packages where kids can achieve maybe certain grade points or attendance records or what have you in school, and be able to earn some of these offsetting fees. So the details of that will be worked out a little bit later, but those are the types of things that they would like to do and make sure that everybody, all kids in Norman, have an opportunity to enjoy these facilities.
Thanks, Judd.
Another thing too, I'm sorry, I just thought of this too, that comes with the with the agreement that we have with the Young Family, the relationship we have with them, is Trey's contacts and sponsorship with Adidas. They sponsor national tournaments around the country, and they've already told us that they would like to bring national tournaments to this facility, and we'll do so as soon as it's ready to go. And that means large tournaments, maybe 100 teams, all the top coaches in the country that attend these events would be coming to this facility. This will put us on a national map.
Thank you. The next slide kind of shows the inner workings of the facility and the aquatics and multi-sport in relation to one another. This is at full build out of the 152,000 square foot facility that can be accomplished with voter approval of Go Norman 2020. And what we see here is what we were able to design as part of the first Norman Forward question that provided a budget of about $22.5 million. So the difference in what the original budget would allow us to develop versus the community's vision, the ability to implement that bigger vision for Norman's future is why we are back before our electorate on August 25th. So that's the difference in the two footprints. The next project of Norman Forward is the Senior Wellness Center. As the concept has evolved over the last few years, it started out as a vision to occupy a portion of the former Central Library in about 20,000 square feet. That was kind of contingent upon the library being relocated into a new facility, which only recently happened. We cut the ribbon in November of 2019. The senior center during that time actually grew and was identified as a facility to be built at Reaves Park, which was definitely an upgrade over occupying a portion of an existing building in a remodel. And that vision began to grow as our Citizens Advisory Committee was able to view and tour facilities of similar nature in Oklahoma City that were funded through the MAPS program. And that really helped complete the vision to include a warm water pool for therapy and exercise, as well as a complete gym and fitness setup with a catering kitchen and multi-purpose rooms for various fitness activities and social activities alike. Right now, this project is considered to be hosted at the Porter campus with our friends at Norman Regional. They've invited us to develop the project on that site as it would be adjacent to other wellness providers. That question was brought before the Citizens Advisory Committee for this project, and it was seen as overwhelmingly positive. So right now, that project is deemed to move forward on the Porter campus of Norman Regional. The facility at full build-out in this particular vision will require an additional $4.3 million that would be provided through the Go Norman 2020 question next Tuesday, and allow the entire facility to be built versus what could be funded with the current budget of about $7.8 million. So you can see the original budgeted project in red versus the complete vision in blue. The next project on the list is the adult softball and football complex up on Franklin Road at 12th. 5 full-scale adult softball fields with concession stands and restrooms, with parking lots, and 7 practice facilities for youth football, both tackle and flag. And we need an additional $9.1 million from the Go Norman 2020 question to allow the build-out of the entire project. The current funding will allow us to build 1 softball field and 1 football field, which is, it doesn't provide enough synergy to really be viable at that stage. So the Citizens Advisory Committee for this program came back to council and said, we think we need to seek additional funding to build the entire project. The next project on the list is Ruby Grant Park on 36 Northwest, just north of Tecumseh. You'll see this project under construction right now, and a lot of the dirt work is already happening. What we need to complete the entire project, according to the plan, is about $2.1 million from Go Norman 2020, and that will allow for the final upgrade of the walking trail system that is currently designed to be built in decomposed granite. And what we'd like to do is improve that trail system in red to be a concrete surface with some added amenities for members of our disabled community. We'd like to upgrade that to concrete with a ribbon that runs along that concrete path that is detectable if somebody is walking with a cane if they are visually impaired. And also we'd like to add additional lighting to that trail space to make it more user-friendly and allow us to utilize that facility more hours a day and more days of the year. So you can see all of the activities. There is a substantial playground facility for members of our disabled communities. Both children and adults will be able to take advantage of several of those activities, and we believe this facility will have such a huge investment in our disabled community that it may be attractive to members of the disabled community throughout the metro. Artist rendering of the Ruby Grant Memorial. We think the architecture fits beautifully with the landscape out in the neighborhood. And this is just a tribute to the family and the lady who occupied that 160-acre site throughout her life here in Norman. The next project is the Griffin Soccer Complex. All of our soccer activities will be centrally located to make it really convenient for parents and athletes. We also think this facility in its full build-out provides for some prime soccer tournament space, and we know a lot of our soccer parents travel substantially throughout soccer season just to other facilities that are large enough to handle the tournaments that their children play in. We're a little light on the budget to build the entire master plan, and this slide shows you where we're coming up a little short in order to build all of it. To make the original Norman Forward budget go a little farther, the Citizens Advisory Committee recommended the elimination of the indoor soccer facility just to get a little more space on the outside if we were unable to build it all. The request from the Citizens Advisory Committee was to go ask the voters for the balance of the funding to build the entire vision. And you can see the additional facilities that would go in with Go Norman 2020, including a full-size indoor soccer facility. There aren't many of these in and around central Oklahoma, but this is the vision and the project identified by the citizens here who participate in these sports. Reaves Park. This is the home to all of our future youth baseball and softball infrastructure. The total build-out is 14 youth fields with lighting, concession stands, restrooms, and additional parking. Different view of the complex at completion, and we believe that we will have enough space to provide our baseball and softball parents the opportunity to spend more weekends here in Norman and less time on the road. We'll be able to facilitate more tournament play here that all of our young athletes currently participate in. That's an aerial of the project at build-out, and one of the tasks that we need to complete in order to bring this vision to fruition includes the relocation of a park maintenance facility that currently sits on the portion identified as new field construction down there in the lower left-hand portion of the slide. So you can see the layout and the circulation for traffic and parking. So in red, that is where our current parks maintenance facility is located. We think the highest and best use of this piece of real estate is youth sports facilities and not a parks maintenance metal building. Fortunately for us, that parks maintenance metal building is well worn, and the goal is to replace it with a new steel structure in North Base, which is off of Da Vinci Street that you access from Flood. The city owns real estate up in that part of the airport, and a lot of our maintenance activities take place in North Base. So in red would be the site for the new parks maintenance facility. Artist rendering, relatively simple construction, steel building, but adequate ceiling heights, adequate electrical, adequate insulation. And hopefully we'll see another 50 to 75 years worth of life for parks maintenance out of this new facility.
I think it would be helpful at this point to ask some of the questions that we're getting about the Norman Forward.
Please, that would be great.
Quite a few. So the first one that I'm seeing a lot is why now? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Why are we asking for this at this time?
Mr. Francisco?
Well, from my perspective, from the financial perspective, there's a lot of reasons that this is actually the ideal time to build these projects. First, because the bond market where we would be selling these bonds, the interest rates are at historic lows. We just sold some bonds, general obligation bonds, at 1.8%. And if you compare that to a home mortgage, excellent rates in the bond market environment that we're in right now. We would hope to take advantage of that if the timing holds and the market holds. And we try to get to the market as quickly as we can so that we can take advantage of those low interest rates. But also from the standpoint of the projects themselves, just understand that doing $120 million worth of projects is of itself like a local stimulus package. We'd be employing hundreds of tradesmen, workers to build these projects, buying a lot of materials locally. All of those sorts of things are stimulating the local economy. I like to think of it sort of like the New Deal back during the Great Depression of the 1930s, when the way the country brought themselves out of that was to invest in themselves and build those projects that we're still enjoying today, like Andrews Park was a WPA project during the Great Depression. And I like to think of that in the same way now. We're enduring this pandemic, this really bad economy, but from the standpoint of the buy low, sell high dichotomy, this is really a great time to do this sort of thing from an economic and from a financial perspective.
if I could add one more comment to that, another thing on the timing that makes sense is the property taxes are due in arrears, and so the first property taxes that would be due from these GO bonds would be in 2022. And so that's still quite a ways down the road, and we're thinking, or hoping, obviously we all hope that the pandemic is behind us at that point. Things are back to normal in terms of people working and all of that. So that also helps in the timing of.
And when we're looking at the phasing of these buildings, we're not talking about them being open and finished during the pandemic. Really, what's the timeline for that look like?
Right, the construction would all be concurrent with all these projects, but the first one to finish would probably be Ruby Grant, which would be in the spring of '21, and that's just because that project construction is so far underway. And then after that, you start seeing completions in 23 and 24, 2023 and 2024. So all of that, it takes time to get them built, and again, the assessments don't begin until 22.
Okay. We have another question here. Why are we spending 61 of the 84 million given on parks?
Say that again?
Why are we spending 61 million of the 84 million on parks?
61 of the 81 million on parks.
84.
Actually, this goes back to the original Norman Forward program. And yes, of the facilities that are in this package, a lot of them are concentrated on parks. But just understand that of the original Norman Forward program, which was over $150 million, there were a lot of other facilities, like the 2 libraries that have already been constructed, that could or could not be considered park facilities, but all of them are certainly improving the quality of life for all of our residents and citizens and visitors. So I think a park concentration is good and certainly a contribution to our quality of life, but just understand that a lot of it has to do with the timing, that the libraries were built first.
These were all projects brought to the city council in 2015 by the citizens stakeholder committee, if you will. These were the projects identified. These were the ones that the community said that we want done, and this is where our interest is. So the list got developed from a grassroots effort from the community.
And why don't we spend this money on hospitals or COVID testing feeding back into the ambulance system?
Different question, potentially for a different agency's responsibility. We do work closely with our friends at Norman Regional, and we also have several private sector industries that are largely focused currently on the COVID-19 pandemic and testing. The public health issues are typically not a municipal issue. They typically lie with the State Department of Health and the County Department of Health, as well as the hospital systems here in Norman. So there is a substantial effort underway as testing continues to advance. And we work closely with the hospital to verify and ensure hospital capacity to address COVID-19 issues. But those are just functions of a different governmental entity than local government.
Excellent. I think that's most of our questions here, other than I think we talk a little bit more about the differences in this project versus other projects. So this doesn't take money away from other projects, or that's the question we're getting on, is why are you spending money on this rather than on when we have so many other needs?
So Anthony, perhaps the a little insight on the balance of our capital budget and how that comes to us from a very specific sales tax allocation.
The city of Norman has a dedicated sales tax of 0.7% for capital projects. That is spent mostly on things that don't have any other source of revenue. There is a portion of that that goes to parks. There's a portion that goes to stormwater projects. A large portion goes to street and bridge projects. That capital sales tax is in and of itself stretched thin to meet our ongoing needs for equipment and those sorts of things. We have other sorts of dedicated capital projects in other general obligation bonds, for example, for streets construction and for street maintenance. So yes, there are other sources of revenue for capital projects, but the Norman Forward program was originally brought to the city from a citizen initiative for these quality of life projects to be separately accounted for and separately programmed.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. And why wouldn't we convert, Judd, I think this is a question for you, why wouldn't we simply convert the old soccer fields and softball fields by the mills? I think they're talking about Griffin Park here. Why wouldn't we simply upgrade and convert those?
That is part of the project. All of the existing soccer fields will remain. They'll actually be improved. And then the baseball and softball fields that are at Griffin will be removed and moved to Reaves Park, and new soccer fields will be built where the old baseball and softball fields are located today. But all of the existing fields will be continue to be used.
You know, and the opportunity to provide a soccer complex where all of the soccer activities take place and a youth baseball and softball complex where all of those facilities take place, hopefully will allow parents to bring all of their young athletes to a facility during a particular season and not be running back and forth across town based on the age of the athletes. And that can be a challenge for moms and dads if the facilities are spread out around town.
Mm-hmm. I have just one more question here about Norman Forward, and then we can move on to the next proposition. Will there be a cost to residents to use these facilities?
Yes, there will in most cases. Just like when we finished the Westwood Family Aquatic Center, people pay a fee, either a season pass fee or a daily fee to use the swimming pools. It's the most recent projects that we have modeled after for the senior center, for example, come out of the MAPS program in Oklahoma City, where the people here have toured those facilities and decided those are exactly what we want to build and model our program after. Those involve user fees. Those are necessary to help offset maintenance and operating costs that occur on a daily basis. The GO bond funds cannot be used for M&O cost, maintenance operating expenses. So it's very customary to have user fees associated. Likewise, people that participate in sports programs, soccer, baseball, softball, basketball, all pay registration fees or user fees, either individually or for teams as a group, and have been and will continue to do that. And those, again, are used to offset the cost of maintaining the facilities moving forward.
Thank you.
The other thing I would add to that, too, is with all of our programming, we make efforts to help financially help people that need assistance. And so we have graduated fee scales that can be used to provide assistance. And that goes back to one of the things that the Young family wanted to do, provide some of those fees to offset costs for people that may not be able to afford them. So we have ways to help people that need it.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that information, Judd. I think we're ready to move on to the next proposition, and then we'll follow up with questions after that.
Thank you. The scope of Proposition 2 regarding homelessness and homeless facilities. Currently in Norman, our city council has commissioned the development of a study, working with some consultants to help us understand in greater detail the needs and barriers facing our homeless population. That work is just now being undertaken. This particular bond package will provide us a funding mechanism to implement the findings of our homelessness and housing study, and could provide for a range of facility uses. These dollars cannot be used to provide programs, but could be used to provide facility space to address the needs of our most vulnerable population. We know in our homeless community right now, we have the complete demographics. We have individuals, we have males and females, we have senior citizens in our homeless population, homeless families, and homeless children. And the ability for us to fully understand our population and then be able to devise facilities from which services can be delivered to satisfy those needs is the mission of that particular question. A little insight as to function and programming. We are fortunate here in Norman to participate in an effort known as the Continuum of Care. And with us, Lisa and Michelle are the two staff members that do the lion's share of the effort in the city of Norman's support to the Continuum of Care. And we have a great understanding of the population in terms of numbers and where they reside currently in Norman. And the goal is to provide each and every one of them the opportunity to obtain permanent and supportive housing. And this process is how we hope to get from point A to point B.
Right, for the homelessness facilities, we do have a question here. Why was this bond for the homelessness facilities broken out from Norman Forward when the senior center was kept in? Why wouldn't we have split them all out, split every project out?
Anthony, the details as to bond law and how they are most likely grouped, if you can help share that with us.
Under bond law, and this may be better posed to the city attorney, but like propositions can be combined on a ballot. They can also be split out. But for purposes of simplicity and understandability, the effort is to combine like projects in a single proposition. You cannot, however, combine too many projects because if they're unrelated, then you're violating a law that's based on a term of log rolling. And so you cannot combine everything, but to the extent that you can combine like projects on a single ballot, we try to for simplicity's sake.
Great. And we do have one more question back on Norman Forward is, do we plan to do a recruitment for these facilities when they're open to hire more Parks and Rec employees? Would this provide job creation in Norman?
Yes, it will, and we do have proposals for operators, contracts for the multi-sport and aquatics facility, as well as the senior facility, senior wellness center. So we plan to contract the operation of those two facilities out, and of course all the youth sports activities are already contracted out to the different sports associations around town that have been in place for many years.
Thank you. And as Anthony, I think that goes with what Anthony had mentioned earlier about even during construction, will we have to hire welders
Absolutely.
and workers, et cetera? That's all the questions I have for this proposition.
Thank you. The scope of Proposition 3 relates to municipal facilities. And you see in the picture the municipal complex renovations, the Emergency Operations Center that will be developed on Robinson Street across the street from our city's water treatment facility, and then the fleet and fire maintenance facilities up on North Base. So in 2008, the original effort to renovate the City Hall complex was voter approved, and it was hinged upon the ability to relocate the central library to a new facility. So building D in this drawing represents the former central library. And that basically set on hold until the original 2015 Norman Forward question was approved. And in 2019, the library was relocated to the north side of Andrews Park. What we see now, Building D is currently being renovated. It's in the demolition phase. On the interior of the building, the exterior will remain largely unchanged. The current occupants of Building A that you see on the drawing, and a few of the occupants from Building C will then be moved and reoccupy Building D upon its completion to provide for the development center, allowing a one-stop shop for construction and development activities to take place here in Norman. Currently, when you want to submit plans for building anything, you might drop off a set of plans at Building A and then go to Building C and pay fees, and then drive another set of plans to West Lindsay Street to the former National Guard Armory to complete your task. We think it's going to be much more efficient for our community to be able to do that all in one stop in Building D. The other building you see up here on this drawing is Building B as in boy, and that is the current footprint for our municipal court complex. And as the vision advances with the Go Norman 2020 question, the courts will reoccupy Building A upon its renovation, so the space will more than double and provide an opportunity for juvenile court and adult court to take place in separate facilities, and it'll provide us capacity to provide more efficient service to our community in the years to come. Building B is the police department building, and its renovation will include the removal of 3 modular buildings that are glued to the front, and they currently house a lot of our court activity. So we'll be cleaning up the front of Building B and renovating it on the inside to include the renovation of the basement, which currently houses our dispatch center. So if you're on Gray Street looking north, you can see the central library in the lower left-hand corner and the police department in the upper right-hand corner of that drawing. Elevations of the former central library. Not a lot of activity on the outside of the building. Most of the activity will all take place inside those walls. Renovations to the police department will patch the holes and fill in the spaces that used to be occupied by the modular buildings, but not radical changes to the outside of the structure. An interior view of the Emergency Operations Center, which will house the new dispatch facility as well as a data vault for our IT and all of our server storage. So this will be a much more secure location, designed and engineered to withstand severe weather incidents here in Norman. The footprint of the new Emergency Operations Center shows an expanded dispatch area, so we can keep up with growth in that service and provide a much more user-friendly working environment for a 12-hour shift in a very stressful environment. An exterior view of that Emergency Operations Center. From the dispatcher's perspective, imagine descending the stairs into the basement where you're going to spend a 12-hour shift in a very stressful environment to be able to look forward to an opportunity to new space with some design amenities. We think the ability to continue to keep pace with the demands in public safety response can absolutely be facilitated in this new space. This next drawing shows you, much better ceiling heights, better lighting, and more appropriate furniture for the tasks at hand. The total facility at build-out is 19,750 square feet, and should last us between 50 and 75 years up on a piece of property we already own on Robinson. The last piece of the puzzle for municipal facilities is the Fleet and Fire Maintenance Facility. Everyone may be familiar with the inheritance of the public transit system from the University of Oklahoma last year. We are still maintaining the buses in the bus maintenance facility owned by the university, and they have other needs for that space. So we are on task to develop our own heavy fleet maintenance facility up on North Base. It would be a building right next door to the new parks maintenance facility that'll be built as part of question 1 on the ballot. So you'll see the new building in red for the fire and fleet maintenance facility. The transit buses get bigger and bigger, and our fire emergency vehicles also get bigger and bigger. So we need larger bays with higher ceiling heights and larger lifts to keep those machines operational to provide the highest level of service. This is the artist rendering of what that North Base facility will look like. The parks maintenance facility is in the center of that picture, and on the left side is the fire and fleet maintenance facility. And then a street view of what those buildings will look like. The fourth question before the voters.
We have a
Oh,
couple
please.
questions here.
Questions, Annahlyse?
Back to the homelessness facility, could we provide the number of homeless people currently in Norman?
The current number of the total homelessness?
Yes.
We have, for our chronic population, right now we have 179. And for the additional homeless population who may not have been surveyed yet, that is a little bit over 300 currently in Norman.
So when you take it all into account, we have over 400.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And
If
then
I
on,
may, before we move off that, I neglected to respond to part of that question about how the homeless facility is a separate proposition, because from a legal standpoint, it could have been combined with the Norman Forward projects. But council decided to split it out as a separate proposition just because the Norman Forward projects had already been considered by the voters. The homeless facility had not. So it was set out as a separate proposition.
thank you. Thanks for clarifying that, Mr. Francisco. So in the last meeting, we had talked about some money being used to remodel the old library for city offices. Where is that money coming from, and how does this additional money get used in conjunction with that?
So the original voter approval of an $11.2 million bond back in 2008 is providing for the major renovation of the former Central Library. And once that former Central Library is renovated to become the development center, the new Go Norman 2020 question allows for the balance of those on-campus facilities to be renovated and move forward. So we vacate Building A to occupy Building D, and then we relocate the courts out of Building B into Building A. So Anthony's described it as a series of dominoes that need to fall in a very specific order. And the voters in 2008 approved our ability to fund the first domino falling, which is currently underway. And now Go Norman 2020 provides the opportunity for the rest of those dominoes to fall in order.
And I know, see, 2008 was a long time ago, and the first domino really was the library, because before the other dominoes could progress, the Pioneer Library System, the Central Branch Library, had to be constructed and moved. In 2008, the voters approved the municipal complex renovation, but they did not approve funding for the Central Library. It was only with the passage of Norman Forward in 2015 that there was funds for the Central Library project. 2015, funding is available, design progresses, the Central Library was actually built and opened in late 2019, and now we can move forward with the bond-approved renovation of the municipal complex, Domino 2, if you will. And then the other dominoes that the city manager described can progress.
Excellent. Thank you. And I know we don't have Tim here, but we do have a question that maybe one of us can hazard a guess at. What is the benefit to having IT within the city of Norman versus farming it out to someone else for maybe lower cost?
I've actually lived through the experience of farming it out in order to save money, and never really experienced the savings that come along with the concept of outsourcing. The one thing we have are dedicated eyes on a system that is now under, honestly, constant assault from outside forces attempting to install ransomware on assets that we need to provide services to our community. And with those dedicated resources here inside the city of Norman, we believe we can provide the most immediate response to any emergency situation or assault from outside efforts to try to breach the data that we maintain. We are currently undergoing an upgrade in software, and I would be, it's hard to imagine a successful software migration in a situation with a third-party contractor not here in-house with us. So we have conversations, communications with our IT staff, honestly, on a daily basis, monitoring the situation. And Tim gave us a statistic that, there have been more than 1 million attempted breaches into our security to try to access our data. And our local team's been able to fend those off, and we knock on wood and say so far we've been able to defend ourselves, but it's an ongoing effort to maintain data security, and that's one of the primary reasons it makes sense to keep it here in-house.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Daryl. That's all the questions that we have up to this point, so I think we're ready to move on to the next one.
Thank you. The fourth proposition before the community is a small business relief program. And we may recall from the news back in April when the Safer at Home orders began to roll out nationwide, Oklahoma City was able to spring into action and provide a small business relief program because they had on hand money identified for economic development purposes. And they recognized job retention is as important as job creation in the world of economic development. And they pivoted and were able to provide $5 million worth of loans and grants to small businesses. What they didn't expect, within about a 2-week period, they had applications requesting more than $20 million in small business support. They added a second $5 million allocation to the program, and just in the last few weeks added an additional $12 million to their small business relief package. We were not sitting on an economic development fund balance that would allow us to act in such a timely fashion, but council identified the need and the benefits to have resources available for small business relief. The council tasked our Norman Economic Development Advisory Board with coming up with program guidelines on how we would administer a small business relief package, and council set parameters that they wanted to make funds available for small businesses defined as those businesses with 35 or fewer employees, and businesses that had not been successful in seeking or acquiring support from payroll protection funding or small business loans that were moved forward as part of federal funding for COVID relief. In this proposition to provide the greatest level of taxpayer security, it was identified through that Economic Development Advisory Board that the federal government is pushing, more than $1 trillion of federal funds into the economy for these support programs. If the city of Norman is successful in accessing CARES Act dollars through the state of Oklahoma and we're able to satisfy this need, these bonds cannot be issued. And just in the last handful of days, the city of Norman did receive a notification from the state of Oklahoma that we've received an allocation of $9.6 million based on our population to be able to impact COVID relief here in Norman. One of the programs that is available to us is a small business relief program, and we are currently investigating that opportunity and investigating mechanisms to access those federal dollars through the state. If we are successful, these bonds will not be issued.
Fantastic. I actually have no further questions on this. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add to the discussion? All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Annahlyse.
all thank you to the public. Thank you for joining us today. We will be having our last and final virtual meeting on Monday at 2 p.m., and the vote is on the 25th, next Tuesday. So get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.